Hi everyone, it's Alicia Miller, the founder of Core Emotional Healing, and today it's kind of an impromptu video that came up through talking to some clients this week, some friends, all going through the same thing. So I found myself giving the same advice and telling parts of my story to help them. And it's related to creating your own business and making money and the reality of that journey for some of us can be really difficult. And so I thought I would share my whole story with all of you. So this video, just as a reminder, I am in Costa Rica, so internet can be unreliable here. So just setting that intention right now that the internet is strong, so we stay connected so I can share my whole story. Now, my story is a long one. I started my business 11 years ago. Many of you, people in my life, have seen what I've gone through, but a lot of people who may have just recently connected with me over the last, recently to over the last 5 years, see what I have created. And many people are impressed and it looks very easy. So I want to just share the reality with you. So feel free to share anything that you want to share, any things that you're going through during this video. Feel free to ask me any questions. So I'm going to just start telling my story, and I'll be sharing the tips of what will help you along the way as you're creating your business or recreating your business or creating something new. And that's really, what it's all about, is just embracing what is now. I see and hear from so many people that there's a lot of regrets of something not working or comparing to other people. And so if you're thinking about what could have happened, or if only you made a different decision in the past, or you see everyone else making it, or they look very successful but you're not, just know that when you do that, you're just creating more feelings of feeling inadequate and not enough. That can come from some old childhood wounding. So your lens on life gets interpreted through those feelings of not feeling good enough, or the toxic shame of feeling that there's something wrong with you. Other people are better than you. That definitely can come from your childhood experience, which I highly suggest that you explore while you're working on your business. That is not even one of the tips I was going to share with you today. But of course, with what I do, it's always going to be my number one tip is to work on any of your old programming that comes from what you experienced as a child to help you shift your reality and your experience in the present moment. All right, so I have been working for myself, as I said, for 11 years with many twists and turns. I have created about 7 businesses, different brands, different concepts. I am working on just one now that I didn't set out to do. So what I have created and what I am doing now came to me through my journey, through all of the experiences I had with all of my businesses, and also my healing journey. So through all of that, information and solutions came to me, and the putting it all together came after I started working with clients. So the information came to me as I worked with clients. So it wasn't even what I ever thought I would be doing. I didn't ever think, oh, I want to do emotional healing or inner child healing. That came through me as a result of my own healing, just about 6 years ago. So, but everything that I did before that added up, and I definitely have used everything that I did in what I'm doing now. So it's only started to be easy for me, where I don't have to work hard. Things are flowing and things are just easy, and I'm feeling inspired, and I don't have to worry about money. It just always comes. That only has happened in the last year. So for 10 years straight, I had struggled. I had been in multiple deep, dark depression periods of my life. And I'm going to share some of that with you today. I was homeless twice. I didn't actually live on the street, but I got to a place where I actually didn't have a place to live. I had no money and no car twice. And then I'm going to share what happened at those points. So, everyone's journey is going to be different, of course. So mine is going to look completely different than yours. You don't have to experience what I experienced. Your journey can be totally different. Like, it could be quicker, it could be longer, so the thing is to not compare, and comparison will always set you back in terms of making you feel bad about yourself. So when you let go of comparing yourself to other people, you can just embrace where you are and what you need in the moment. Letting go of comparison from your past too. Thinking that you were successful at one point, or your life was so perfect at one point and now it's not, and what's wrong with you. Those are all those stories that I was talking about, where all of the toxic shame and feeling not good enough. Hi, Keller and Stacy, thanks for joining. That starts to get interpreted into a story about yourself. So that would be tip number one. Don't compare. So don't compare yourself from where you used to be. Don't compare yourself to other people and where they are. So I'm going to share my story. Don't compare yourself to my story, but hopefully in sharing my story today, through my story, I hope you learn some things of how you can look at what you're experiencing differently. Maybe come up with new ideas of what you could do now, and how you can move through some challenging times and feel more positive and hopeful even when you're struggling. I also hope that you will feel grateful about your situation now when you hear parts of my story too. So again, not comparing, but just seeing, how it can go, and it's not easy, it's not always easy, and all of the hard times, the challenging times, the struggles are helping you. So I am so grateful for everything that I experienced. I don't regret anything. I am not upset at anyone for not being there for me or giving me what I needed in the moment, because I learned how to take care of myself, and I learned how I am okay no matter what. I'm okay when I'm homeless. I'm okay when I have no money. I have the inner resources from those experiences. So, hold on a second. So I started off with going into corporate sales. I had a marketing degree, but I also had a passion for health and wellness. I had a belief that I couldn't make money. I think actually a family member had told me you can't make money doing what you love. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. I had a natural skill and intuitive sense about marketing. I actually studied marketing in college and created my own internship with someone else, and we both just would create things intuitively. So it's one of my gifts, and so it was really easy for me. It was easy for me to go into sales, and I valued money as a source of my self-worth, and so I wanted to make a lot of money, and I did. So I worked for a payroll company, and I was top salesperson in multiple payroll companies, and I went into a higher division of those payroll companies. It was a total outsourcing solution. I created my own opportunities there. I opened up offices that didn't exist. The market didn't exist yet. I opened up I moved from Atlanta to San Francisco and ran 4 offices, and I was really successful and really miserable, and I didn't know it because I had a lot of defenses and protections to be happy all the time, to be okay all the time, to push away my pain, to drink, and do other things to feel better. So, but after, I went through a really hard time with an abusive marriage, and, I married an abusive guy and left that after 3 months. I did a lot of inner work, deep subconscious emotional healing for 3 years straight. And from that, I felt finally how it was feeling to be misaligned in the corporate world. And it just wasn't me. And I wasn't, my heart wasn't in it, and I felt it was actually against it. So I left the day before I turned 33. I am now 44, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So hi everyone, I'm back. This is part 2. I may just do different parts of this video because I could tell my internet connection said low internet connection, so it most likely was freezing. So I'm going to just pick up where I left off and just hope that it doesn't do that again. So I was just sharing about my corporate career. So this video is part 2 of my tips for creating your business and how to deal with financial stress, struggles, and feelings of failure. So after I left my corporate job, I actually did not know what I was going to do, and I did not have that much money, but I just knew I couldn't do it. And at that point, I had done so much inner work, I knew I could trust my spirit to lead me. And so I just gave myself like a month to kind of detox from the corporate environment and that life. And then I got an email that said, do you want to inspire and empower people to know themselves, to take care of themselves, and empower themselves? And I was like, yeah. So it said become a journaling facilitator, and I was so excited. I avoided journaling. I actually had a block. I didn't journal myself, so I knew it was what I needed as well at the time, and it's still to this day a huge part of what I do. I have created multiple online courses and workbooks and journaling. It's all involved journaling exercises that I've created. So where I did begin was very, very useful. But where I began was I taught journaling, just straight journaling workshops. I taught people how to go into journaling and in a whole new way, and looking at it in a different way, and different journaling techniques. And I actually just did that workshop and expanded it, actually my original workshop, and I have it actually for sale on my website called The Power of Journaling. And so journaling actually connected me to my heart because I was helping other people connect to their hearts, and I had never been so happy. Like I was like finally connected to myself. in my heart. And so I was just in constant joy and bliss. And I hardly made any money. So I didn't really plan like how I was going to manage this old lifestyle and expenses I had with this new business. So, leaving a successful corporate sales job, I always made over 100,000 for 10 years every year. But I also had a really bad unhealthy relationship with money. I didn't respect money and I didn't respect myself. So I ended up spending all of it and I would go into debt, and I just was in like this, I didn't value it or myself. So I made so much money, but I had nothing to show for it, and I didn't really know how to manage my own money, but I just felt good, and I was like so happy that I was feeling good for the first time in my entire life. For the first time, didn't want to go out and get drunk. I was like, I don't want to change the way I'm feeling now. I feel amazing. So I then was in my in my intuitive and creative self for the first time, and not for the first time. I always had this, I always had ideas and things that would come to me, but I was in full on using it all full time. And so other ideas just started coming to me. And I had another idea to create a wellness directory in Atlanta. So I was teaching journaling workshops, I was teaching health workshops, clearing blocks, things like that. And then I would refer people. So another gift of mine is connecting people to resources. So I was always known as where to go for wellness. And so people would ask me where to go, and I would connect them. And I was like, well, I'll just create an online directory. Well, I'll just do that. I didn't really think of how I was going to fund that project. But so I was creating these two businesses, and then all of a sudden I realized I'm out of money and I can't pay any of my bills, and I had about $60,000 in credit card debt. It was 2008, the housing market crashed. I was upside down on my loft that I owned, so I couldn't sell it because the value went down so much. And so I owed more than how much it was worth at that time. And then I also owed more on my Saab. So you can see, I had this materialistic lifestyle, and then it just didn't match what I was doing. So I went through a deep, dark depression at that point. I would wake up every morning heaving, crying, and fall on the floor, and I just didn't know what to do. I was trying to hold on to everything. I borrowed money from family that I eventually paid back, but it took me a very long time. I borrowed money to pay my mortgage, but I didn't really have a plan of how I was going. I started looking for corporate jobs again, corporate sales jobs, but before I used to get recruited. I was the top salesperson, so I would just get recruited. I had I never really had to worry about looking for a job. And then I started applying, and there was nothing for me. So it was all leading me to continue my own journey, and I couldn't go backwards at that point. So I finally, so tip number 2 is don't try to make it big right away. I was more in my ego then, and grandiosity, and thinking that I could, create this huge wellness directory, and I was going to be on Oprah and solve the healthcare solution. So anyway, I had a lot of ideas that I thought, of course, it's needed. It's going to happen. And I'm just starting off in business for the first time. And so I needed to learn a lot more, and a lot more about myself So I see this happening where people start their business with an idea, and after the first year, they're like, it's not working, I'm failing, and then feeling like they need to give up or start investing more money in coaches or looking for investors. I was looking for investors for the website and everything. So don't try to make it big. Like, it doesn't have to be successful right away. I don't know anyone that had instant success, maybe, Donald Trump or whatever, being born into a business and millions of dollars. But, for people creating businesses out of, a new idea without family money, it takes time to develop. It takes time to really see what you want to do. The other mistake that I see people make is you think you know what you want to do, but until you do it for a long time, you really don't know. So I think what comes, the businesses that we think we want to do, once we do it, that's when we learn what we want to do or not want to do anymore. So everything that I have created has come from working with people. It did not come from what I thought I wanted to do. Okay, I'm back. I saw that the internet again was low connection, so I was most likely freezing. So this is going to be in different parts. So this is another example of just going with the flow. I had an idea that I would do one video and tell my whole story in one video. And now the internet keeps dropping after I give one or two tips. So this is how it's going to go now. I guess I will be sharing some tips now. And then if the internet goes down again, I will continue in another part. And this is just how it goes. So I was sharing tip number 2, don't try to make it big right away. And I was talking about how we don't really know what we want to do until we're doing it. And then we learn and we grow, and then we see how we can make it better. So that can look like doing something and then completely redoing it or not doing it anymore. So I want to also point out that, to embrace that, accept your business, what you want to do will be changing as you're doing it. So if you create something and you create something different, that's how it goes. This is how it works. So release any ideas around that you failed because one idea that you had didn't work, or it wasn't working for you, because that's how we develop things. This is how we learn. And one thing always leads to another. So you're not failing. You're not, you're never failing. If something's not working, you're just learning from it. So I, after my first year in business, I would teach journaling workshops and health workshops, and then because it didn't bring in a lot of money and I couldn't move forward with developing the wellness directory yet, I started working with a lot of local businesses in the wellness industry. It was still aligned, and I was a consultant for online marketing for them. So if you've caught part 1 of the story, I shared that marketing, I have an intuitive marketing gift. So I just would see how it works, how it evolves. And so I saw the need for businesses to start engaging with their customers through blogs and newsletters and Facebook. And so I helped wellness companies getting all that set up, and that was back in 2008. So that is tip number 3. Even though I didn't want to be a marketing consultant, I knew I wanted to work with people, and I loved teaching the workshops. I still needed to make money and support myself. So tip number 3 is do what you're good at that is easy money while you're developing what you really want to do. I see a lot of people struggling with making money because they're just, you're certain that you want to do this one thing that brings you joy and that's all you want to do. And that is awesome that you have that connection and you know what you love and continue doing that. But while you're developing how that's going to support you, you need to support yourself by doing whatever you can and you know, whatever other gifts that you have. It can be anything like tutoring or, you know, helping people or working on projects. And, you know, if you've come from, you know, your past, if you had, like I had a corporate sales job, you know, and I was a marketing consultant and these things came easy. So it helped people do that in businesses. If you've come from another job, you can, you know, use the skills that you have used in the past, even though you don't want to be doing that full time. You can still use those to support your ultimate thing that you know you want to do more of. So I would continue to offer my marketing consulting for the next 5 years. So I started my business 11 years ago. And so for the first 5 years, I would offer marketing consulting, online marketing consulting and branding and things like that, because it was a natural skill of mine and it paid more than personal coaching. And so it was just easy money to support, you know, my other. Okay, so after the first, after the first year in business, someone keeps calling me, sorry about that. After the first year in business, I realized that, you know, I couldn't keep, as I mentioned, I was telling the story in the last part, I couldn't support myself. I couldn't keep up with the lifestyle that I'd created that was purely materialistic in my past corporate sales career. And so I was sharing that I would fall on the floor and heaving, crying, and I was severely depressed because I was trying to hold on to something that wasn't working anymore. So what I was trying to hold on to was that old life. That old life wasn't working for me anymore. I had bill collectors calling. I couldn't deal with the amount of money that I owed, and I couldn't see a way out. So what I did was reach out for support. I would spend whatever money I had on support, even if it was like an intuitive coaching session. I reached out to my community, and another coach called me and just gave me some free advice that totally shifted me. So that's what's been happening this week. I've had some friends calling and clients and people that I don't know that well kind of reaching out to me, and that's why I'm doing this video, is to help you shift into looking at things in a little different way. That could help you support yourself, and that could help you just embrace this type of journey. And so I ended up coming to terms with filing bankruptcy. I couldn't, there was no other way out for me. And actually, the thought of clearing the debt was clearing my old life, all of the mistakes I made, and why I was creating that debt and where that was coming from. So it was like my intention was to clear that energy and then to free me to create a new life and to have a new relationship with money. So my tip number 4 was reach out for support. I couldn't have seen a way out without the support I got at that time and consistently up until now. Support has been my number one, what I value the most. Support has been everything. It has helped me get to where I am now. So I, after realizing I needed to file bankruptcy, then I was like, oh, well, I don't need to be in Atlanta anymore. So I can just finally follow this calling I had for years to go to Thailand. And I ended up selling all of my furniture, everything that I owned. And within a month, I just packed some suitcases and took off to Thailand. And I had never been there before. I didn't have a plan. I had a backup plan to teach English. And I just knew I needed to go. So there was some, I'm sure, many tips in that story just now of, following a feeling without getting too caught up in how it's going to happen. And, if you have a strong feeling, follow it. If you have something that keeps staying with you, do it, go. It will work out. As long as you keep trusting and reaching out for support when you need it, just trust. I see so many people having these callings, and then they go into their minds around, well, how am I going to make it happen, or trying to figure out what will happen. So trust is huge. Again, the trust and surrender and the trust of the unknown came a lot through my own personal healing, and just trusting my intuition and the signs that led me places. So I felt supported by life at that point. I felt that life was guiding me and supporting me, and I have ever since. Also, there's something about losing everything. And, there's a saying about, like, when you lose everything, you find yourself. There's also something about it when I have lost everything I owned, I felt safer in a way. It was like I wasn't trying to hold on to anything anymore. I actually felt that I'm okay no matter what. So there's a freedom in losing everything. There's a freedom in having nothing and then seeing things show up to support you. There's this feeling, this deep down that I'm okay, I'm safe, and I'm supported no matter what. Because I see so many people that have never actually have gone through any real hardships, but they're in fear all the time of losing everything or being homeless. There's freedom in losing everything and being homeless, because you don't have that fear anymore. They're like, I'm good no matter what. I know I'm okay no matter what. So if you have been struggling and not making any money, know that you have an advantage. You have an advantage of like just being okay and not, I know how hard it is. I know how hard it can be to not know how you're going to pay your bills. I have been there so many times, but hopefully these other tips will help you just create enough and create different opportunities for yourself so you can see that you're always okay. And there's so many resources out there. There's so much out there that can support you when you need it. So you will feel supported on that level. So tip number 4 was reach out for support. I'm sure I gave some other tips in there before. Since then, but that support I got was so vital. It shifted me out of my victimhood around everything and put me into action. And really, I see that's what's needed. And hopefully a lot of my story and these tips will help you do the same. So tip number 5 is be open to different things at different times. So it doesn't always have to be the thing you're gonna do. As you can see, I already shared multiple things I did even in the first year of my business. Then I went to Thailand and I just thought, okay, I'll teach English. But I never felt like I'm giving up my dream. So that is so crucial. Like, if you're doing something different, it doesn't mean that you're giving up your dream. It doesn't mean that you're giving up or leaving what you created before. It's still with you. You still have it. You still have that experience. You still have everything inside of you. So go do whatever you want to do. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that that you didn't know what you were doing. It just means that this is what you want to do now. What's up, Jesse? So hell, I was like, all right, I did that. Now I'll go to Thailand and, I don't know what I was going to do there. I was like, I'll just go and learn how to teach English and see what it's all about for me there. So during that month-long TEFL course, teaching English as a second language, I after like the 3rd week, so I only had 1 more week left, I was talking to the owner and he was sharing about the website, like a new website they were launching. And if you have caught part 1 of this video, I had to stop this video a couple times. So there's part 1, 2, and now this is 3. I think it was in part 1 I was sharing about my marketing background and my intuition around internet marketing, and so I started specializing and helping businesses in 2008, 2009 set up blogs, newsletter, Facebook, YouTube, things like that. Because I saw that's how we were totally moving away from the advertising age and more into personal connections, and really maintaining that connection with customers and things. So I love marketing, by the way. Not marketing that's salesy, hate that, but I love connecting with people and connecting people to what they need. So anyway, so we were talking about their website and I was like, are you gonna have a blog and a newsletter and Facebook? And they're like, we don't know anything about that. And I said, oh, I do, and I could help you, get all that set up. And so the money I made for the week-long consulting with this allowed me not to teach English. And it allowed me to have this freedom to go travel and be led to what I was meant to be there for. So tip number 6 is, I feel you, Jesse. You feel me? Tip number 6 is see opportunities and offer your services. So, you can be talking to people and see an opportunity and go ahead and offer how you can help them. Again, like I didn't go into, oh, I don't do that anymore, or, I'm on to something different. I saw an opportunity and I seized it. I was like, hey, I could help you. And they're like, okay. And then that helped me. So that's how it works. Creating a business you love requires you to do what you need to do to create it. So taking action, seizing opportunities, doing something you used to do in the moment, doing something different, whatever it is. And tip number 7 is get out there and talk to people and ask for help. Even though I've already said ask for support when you're going through those hard times, or you're feeling like you don't know how to get out or see a different way out. This is more around asking for help in terms of how to go ahead and build a business, how to tweak your resume, whatever it is. So get out there and talk to people and ask for help. In addition to going to events and connecting to people in your industry, I highly suggest seeking mentors, people who you look up to, who are successful, and asking them what they did and how they got there. I had a couple mentors throughout my sales career, and then I had a couple mentors when I was creating my business that they were really creative, highly successful entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to learn from them, and they gave me a lot of things that I needed to continue doing what I was doing, or to do it a little different. And I'm doing this video because people reached out to me. It's really, really important to reach out and ask. And that's you supporting you. It's going to change your beliefs that you have about support, where you can go into, again, feeling sorry for yourself or bad that you're trying to do it all by yourself and you're lonely and no one's there for you. This is old stories running too. So to change that story and to change your beliefs is to start asking for support. So that's you supporting yourself and you feel supported. At this point in Thailand, after I made enough money to go traveling and not teach, I lived very simply. So another thing is, like, living within your means is really important, during these long stretches of learning about yourself, developing yourself, creating a new business. It doesn't happen overnight, and so it's really important to live within your means. And so I was really resourceful, and I would trade a lot. I would just keep following my inspiration. I didn't spend a lot of money. I learned my lesson from my material life and spending so much money and not having any more. So I started valuing money. But I started following my inspiration. So what happened after I left that school, I just said, all right, I'm gonna just see what happens. And that's what happened when I left my corporate job. I didn't have a plan. I said, okay, I'm gonna just see what happens and let it come to me. So that's that level of trust that you do know what you want to do. You just have to be open to receive it. And so I just got on a train. I was like in a train station and I was like, well, I'll travel around Thailand. And so I was in a bookstore and I was flipping through a wellness guide to Thailand, like a guidebook. And it was horrible. Like, I was like, oh, I could write a better guidebook than this. And, wellness was my background, and promoting wellness and connecting people to wellness. So I was like, oh, this makes sense. So I'll write a guidebook to all the wellness in Thailand, and I'll start at the top of Thailand. So I started calling these wellness retreats, and I would interview them and research them, and they would put me up for the night and feed me. And so I was not spending that much money, but I was just open to my inspiration. So tip number 8 is follow your inspiration and your creativity, and forget about how it's gonna happen or how you're gonna make money or how you're gonna be successful doing it. That will stop you every time. That will block your creativity, it will block your inspiration, and it will actually make you not listen to your intuition. So your intuition is this inspiration, and it's saying, hey, do this. But then the old conditioning is going, I don't know how I'm going to make money doing that, so I'm not going to do that. And that's going to stop your path and your journey and where you're supposed to be going and where it's going to lead you to. It's not about making it happen all the time or making money and making it be successful. It's about experiencing. Like, we're here to experience ourselves. We're here to experience who we are, and like, as we're changing and developing, what we do is going to change and develop. So it's just old conditioning and beliefs about success and how that defines who you are. So you can start changing that and just forgetting about all those people. If you have any people in your life that are making you feel bad around not being successful, tell them they're not supporting you and your dream, and it doesn't feel good, and that you need to take a break if they're going to continue doing that, and be around people who support you no matter what. So I was researching these retreats in Thailand, and I started at the top, and then the second one I met with Guy Hopkins, who brought the first detox retreat to Thailand 20 years prior. And we totally connected. We had a lot in common. We were both inspired by the same book called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity that I read when I was in college. And I started doing my first cleansing 7-day detox fasting program from that book. And Guy Hopkins, created the first detox retreat in Thailand around that same time, based on that same cleanse. And so I was like, that is so cool. There's all these like synchronicities. And so he then shared that he was launching a new website. And if you've watched, I think another part, I shared about my Thailand experience in helping the school that I went to create social media for their new website. So I asked him about social media, and I think he said it was a fad or something, and I educated him on where it was going and why it's important to build that community. And so we worked out a trade where I got to stay at his retreat for a week and experience his detox program. And I set him all up with a blog and newsletter and Facebook and all of that. So then towards the end of my cleanse, he said, you know what, I know you want to go down the country, but actually what you're all about, what you would be most interested in going to this meeting that's happening on Koh Samui, which was an island down south in Thailand. And so and it just so happened to be happening, the day after I was finished with my cleanse there. And he's like, and he told me that he was flying down, and if I wanted, I could go ahead and fly down and join the meeting. And so I knew that's where I was supposed to go. So tip number 9 is pay attention to the signs and synchronicities. And so I didn't stick to my plan, because it's never really a plan. It's just an idea that changes as things change and happen for you. So I just went with the sign, and I went and flew down, and I landed on Koh Samui. It was night, the plane was landing, and I had this feeling. I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to live. So also, tip number 10 is go with your feelings. It was like this strong, like, this is it. And then the next day was this meeting, and it turned out to be all of the healers on the island, and their whole meeting was how to have everyone know about what each does. And that's why I went there. It was crazy synchronicities. And then I discovered that there was 14 different detox retreats on one island and 30 healers. And I was fascinated that there was that much going on this little island. And so I scratched the idea of a guidebook for Thailand, and I focused it on a guidebook for Koh Samui. So I created a business called Samui Healing. And so I researched, there was 14 different detox retreats and all these healers, and I researched all of them. And I then became a consultant for people who were coming to the island looking for where to go, what retreat would suit them best, or what's the difference between the different retreats, what healers would complement their experience. And I was also working with them and helping them with their self-awareness, why they were there, what was happening at home, and start helping them go deeper into their process beyond the physical cleanse. So I was like in my paradise, like Paradise Island, doing all the things I love. And that all came from just totally paying attention to the signs, saying yes, yes, yes along the way. So I spent 2.5 years living on Koh Samui, and I always made just enough money to live, like just enough money to pay my bills, just enough money to eat. And when I needed more money, I would create new opportunities. So I also created a new relationship with money. I had like a little, different eras with money. I had like the not valuing money or myself. Then I had the era of valuing myself, but also there was some sense of like still feeling restricted. And it's interesting, I'm just saying this for the first time, but I was restricting my food and fasting. I was restricting my money, where I always had this belief that I would just be able to make enough. Like I always had enough. So I kept reinforcing that belief, like I just have enough. And that's what I would get. And I actually started playing with it like it was a game. And I would go down to zero and have no money, and then go, okay, where is it going to show up today? I was like on this remote part of the island, and my money was gone that day. And I was like, okay, let's see where it comes from now. And then 2 people start walking down the beach, and then they call out to me, and I start talking to them, and they're like, oh, can we have a consultation? And then I was like, oh, there's the money. Another time, I played with it actually in a restaurant where I had no money that day. And I was like, well, let's see how magical I can be here. And I ate lunch. And so I ordered food without any money to pay for it. And then all of a sudden, a client just got done with a Vipassana retreat, a silent meditation retreat, and she was like on the floor. So like a client I'd worked with before. And I looked over, and then she looked over at me, and she's like, oh my God, Alicia, you're here. And she's like, can I have a session today from you? And I was doing Reiki and other stuff and journaling and cards. And then I said, yeah. And then she said, well, why don't I pay you now? And she used to always pay me after the session. So I was like, this is hilarious. But I also was creating this limit as well. So I was like, I always have enough. I always just have enough. So I'd always just have enough. So another tip is, I'm losing the numbers, so forget about the numbers here, because I'm thinking of other tips as I'm talking, is really looking at your money story and your beliefs and what do you keep telling yourself. That was a great period of my life, forming a new relationship with money, but it was still a limited relationship with money, and it was a really limited relationship with myself, so I always saw kind of like the parallels as well. The relationships are so important. Form a new relationship with money and really examine your money story. I do think this is tip number 11 though. Respect it, expect it. I had to eventually work on my money story years later, and see where it comes from and what I heard about money, or how money wasn't ever talked about, how it was kind of elusive in my family. We had it, but we didn't have it. So I was playing out that pattern too. And then I was an avoider. So I would just like, I was always scared that I wasn't going to have enough. So I kind of avoided it and had magical thinking around it, where I was just like, okay, well, money's going to show up, and then sometimes it didn't, and I would always be stressed out. So I started focusing eventually on money and forming a really good relationship with money, kind of like I did with my emotions, like I'm not going to avoid my emotions anymore, but I'm going to embrace them and love them And same with money. I'm not going to avoid money anymore, but I'm going to embrace it and love it and give it attention. So once I started doing that years later, then it was flowing more, and I always would have more than enough because I was creating it and seeing it as well. So I left Thailand, but I left Thailand still in that really limited way of thinking about money. And I went back to the US, but I went back to the US mainly because I also had a hard time making money in Thailand. And I knew I needed more resources like in the US, and I needed to develop more for myself. I also wanted to meet Doug, my future husband, and that wasn't happening in Thailand. So yeah, so anyway, I left Thailand, and again, without a plan. I didn't really know what I was gonna do, didn't know how I was gonna make money. My friend said I could stay on her couch. So I went to Thailand, stayed on her couch for a couple days. It was a really rude awakening. You know, I was living for 2.5 years in this really pleasant, lovely, healing island. And then all of a sudden I'm like, back in the US, in San Francisco, which is like the most expensive city in the whole country. It is like cold and harsh. It was for me. So it was hard, really, really hard. And so I was adjusting all of that, and I was not in a good place, and I didn't have money. I was borrowing money from my friend just to pay for food. And her partner at the time didn't want me in the house. So after like 2 days, even though she said I could stay on her couch for as long as I needed, she asked me to leave. So this is my first homeless experience. So she was like, I need you to leave like today or whenever it was. No hard feelings at all towards her or him. It's just what I needed to do to get to where I needed to be. So another thing is just, you know, forget about like that people, like life is not making it hard for you, or life isn't screwing you over. Like life is giving you an opportunity to say yes and go towards something different. That's why things aren't working out, or that's why it's hard. It's like you need to get out of there. You need to go here. And that's all it is. So just keep saying yes and accept where life is directing you. If someone is pushing you out, if a job is pushing you out, if a relationship is pushing you out, say yes. Just keep staying open because you never know what's going to come of it. I was like, okay. But at that point, I had so much freaking trust of just like, you know, whatever, I'm good. Something's going to happen. You know, it's a wonderful place to be. But you got to go through that hard shit to get here. You got to say yes to the hard stuff. You got to say yes to all the struggles. You got to say yes to losing things. Okay. So I went to, so all of a sudden I get this Facebook private message from someone in a course that I assisted in, that she was a student in, that I was doing all that deep emotional healing work in these courses for years. And she reached out to me and she's like, you're back from Thailand. I'd love to I see that you're in San Francisco and I'd love to have lunch with you. And I was like, okay. So again, I said yes. Meanwhile, I had nowhere to live that night. I didn't know where I was going to stay. I had zero money. I had nothing. I didn't have a car. So I was like, okay. So I had lunch with her and I was sharing my situation. And she said, oh, well, my parents have a duplex in Oakland. And the other half of the duplex is empty. If you want to stay there for free, you can. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Yes. So I went to Oakland, and it was hard. The house was so cold. I was so cold. I had like no warm clothes, from Thailand. And I reached out for help again. Like, I reached out to a friend who I used to work at ADP with when I opened up all those offices in San Francisco. And she brought me groceries. And she told a friend about my journey, and her friend was so moved by it, she bought me a gift certificate to Whole Foods. So I just had like my basic needs taken care of. I then went and got a waitressing job. So not ideal, was not a good experience, but is what I needed to have some money to buy some clothes from Goodwill. Okay, I just want to pause here because what I'm sharing is the reality. Like, a lot of people see the image of, what my life is like now, or, oh, she just has it easy. She has these, blah, blah, blah. No, I was like waiting tables in the middle of this, of building my business to buy clothes at Goodwill. Yeah, it takes whatever it takes, man. Like, do whatever it takes. I work with so many people that are complaining about not getting the ideal job they want. It's like, okay, well, do whatever it takes right now to make some money, because you got to support yourself. You can't just sit and feel sorry for yourself and expect the world to just be there for you. You have to be there for you. Okay? Thanks, Mackenzie. Yeah. Amazing things can happen when you work at it and you believe in yourself and you support yourself. So just sharing that I had to wait tables in Oakland. Now, this time in Oakland, I'm getting a free place to live. And it was hard. Everything about it was hard, and I endured it. I had to endure it. There's such value in going through these hardships and these places that you just feel like this is the worst place you could ever be in. But you know what? You're building up this inner strength to handle anything. So I went from Paradise Island to Occupy Oakland. Now, this was 2011, end of 2011. Occupy Oakland was like all protesting, angry. People were camping out. I had no car, so I had to walk and find a job in walking distance. So I found the waitressing job in walking distance. I had to walk through all of that chaos and anger like every day. It was hard. I went into another deep, dark depression. Because waiting tables was really misaligned. I also started reaching out because I knew I needed to do my passion too. So I reached out to Awakening the Bay, which was a holistic directory. Now, if you watched part 1, I think it was, of this video, where I shared that my first year in business, I created journaling workshops, and I was creating an online directory that I couldn't move forward with because I ran out of money. But I was like, oh, someone created my idea. Meanwhile, I did create a detox retreat directory in Thailand. So I did actually move forward with that idea. But I was like, oh, someone moved forward with this idea in the US. And so I decided to help them and partner with them. And so I reached out to the whole holistic community, and I was building the directory with them. Now, they were a startup with no money. So I was also struggling, and I would just make the very little amount that I could on directory listings. But the good thing about that was that I was connecting to the holistic community at the time, which is what I needed to support myself through all of this hardship I was going through, all the deep, deep, dark depression I was experiencing. I was drinking heavily at times. I was binging and purging. I had all kinds of stuff coming up that I didn't know how to deal with because I didn't know how to work with my triggers. And that's why I created what I created now, because of all the hardships I went through, and I didn't have the resources, or I didn't know what was happening or how to work with it. So that's actually kind of a preview to why I created what I created, what I learned, and what I learned that we all need. So I was not making that much money, but I ended up making enough money to quit the waitressing job. But I remember a friend who I had never met, but he was like a soul brother who lived in Thailand, and we created the same things in Thailand, so we were kind of connected in that way. He visited San Francisco, and he was friends with one of the women I met as I was creating the directory. So again, this is one of the tips, is paying attention to the signs. So we got together, and he looked at me, and I just started bawling, crying, because I was so depressed. And I told him, I was like, I don't know if I can continue, I wanted to leave. I wanted to die. And he shared a story of, when he was at that place and someone told him that it was because he wasn't doing what he loved. And then he said, Alicia, he's like, your videos were always so inspiring. And in Thailand, he's like, just do what you love again. Like, do that. And so I realized I was missing that piece. And so I just started doing videos and connecting people again. And I got out of that depression, and I was just doing what I loved. I wasn't making enough money, but all that mattered was that I was doing what I loved, and I was supporting myself enough. And I would cat sit, I would dog sit. So I would do whatever it took. I, again, didn't have a home. I didn't have a car, and I had no money. So I would just do whatever it took. And it was like, oh, well, I would create opportunities. Like, okay, I could, cat sit and have a place to live. I could do this. I could offer this marketing service. And so I just kept creating things to support myself. Now, San Francisco was way, way, way too hard for me. It did not work with my energy, but it brought up a lot of stuff for me to work with in doing deep, deep, deep healing. And it was a gift that I was working with Awakening. Now it's Awakening 360. We shifted to that name when I was working with him. And so it was a gift, that I was doing all of that because I was supported with all the healers and I was supporting them. And this is what I, continue to do as well. But I ended up doing a trade with a guy to do his marketing and help him and teach him how to do YouTube videos in Costa Rica. And so we traded, and I did a 30-day water fast, and I taught him how to do YouTube videos. And so, my journey continued, and I was doing stuff I used to do, years prior, and I was doing all kinds of different things at all different times. And that's okay. So again, I want to stress that it's okay if you do. I think this is tip number 13. It's okay if you do something you used to do. It's okay to start something and then to stop it and then start it again. You're never going backwards. You're just taking care of your needs in the moment. And you don't know when you're in it where it's leading you to. So, if you go into your mind in like a rational, logical, or even that old story of like, what does this mean about you? It's going to stop you from your flow. It's going to stop you from the path that you're being led on. So forget about all that. Go with what is presented in the moment and say yes to it. Because you don't know why you don't know where it's leading you yet. So of course, I had no idea why going to Costa Rica and doing this water fast, why I was doing it. I thought, yeah, I'd like to experience it. It's kind of, a part of my research of really what doesn't work when you're healing. But anyway, so I needed to experience that for that reason. And I needed to experience what that guy was like. Won't mention his name. And this was all part of my experience. And then also I was making videos again because of that reconnecting to my inspiration and what I love. And through my videos, someone saw it who wanted to hire me to work with him privately in Atlanta. So you can see how all of that added up to something where it was leading me to in the future. Nothing was, so most people look at things of like, nothing's working. Forget it. Forget about that way of thinking. Everything is working. Everything is working for you. You are doing it no matter what you're doing. If you're making no money, it's working. You're doing something. Now, again, I'm stressing, be resourceful, creative, and do whatever you need to do to take care of your needs in the moment. But throw out that idea that nothing's working, or the story about yourself that you don't know what you're doing or you're a failure. It's not true. Okay, so then I went back to Atlanta, and that project ended abruptly, and I had to all of a sudden find my own place. And I was creating a new business because I left a lot of these old businesses back in Thailand. Hi, Tom. Nice. I'm so glad you could join. And this is part 3, by the way. There's the beginning of this video is in 2 other videos. The connection was lost, and so that's why they're broken up. So if you're just joining, you can watch those too. So you can hear the whole story. But anyway, and so I reached out to a friend who put me up until I could find a place. So again, stressing the need to keep reaching out for support. And it was just a temporary place where I landed while I could create something else. And then I rented a house, and then I started creating a new business. And I thought, this business was gonna, be it for me, but that business was not it, but it did help me get to what I'm doing now. So everything is always helping, getting us to where we need to go, even when it doesn't look like it. So I rented a house, and then I had to get a roommate because I wasn't making enough money. I started doing workshops, but it was hard to just all of a sudden create a business coming back into Atlanta again after being away for 3 years. And then I got pregnant by someone who I'd just broken up with. So I had no support, no car, and I couldn't work on my business because I was going through a lot emotionally. And so a friend of mine, I connected with a friend who offered her place and a solution to what I needed in the moment, which was to be her nanny to her 3-year-old daughter. So again, it didn't matter that I wasn't moving forward on my business. I was taking care of my needs in the moment. So I went to live with them, and then I had a miscarriage. So again, it was a blessing that I was with them, because if I was alone, I wouldn't have been able to handle the loss and the depression I felt afterwards as a result. So it was a blessing. I was there. I didn't enjoy being a nanny, but it was what I needed to do, and I was grateful at the same time that I had support around me and that all my basic needs were taken care of. So then I found myself in another deep, dark depression, and I knew I needed something to get me out of it. So I started writing in my journal, and I wrote, what do I need to do? And I had some automatic writing where it said teach journaling again, because that was my first love that always connects me to my heart. So I just started teaching journaling, but I didn't do it because I thought it was gonna give me the money I needed. I just did it to reconnect to myself and my heart again, and to shift me out of that depression. So I've told that, I've given a few different examples of that. It's not about what can you do to make enough money. It's do what you can do that you love to do, or that you have skills in doing to support yourself, or to shift you out of the funk that you're in. So I started teaching journaling, just not making that much money in it, but it shifted me so much that my creativity opened up again, and then my energy opened up again, and then opportunities started coming to me, and I started tapping into my intuition and creating new programs. And then I was able to move out of my friend's house, and wait a second. My friend threw me out of her house. This was the second time I was homeless. So I'm not going to get into that relationship, but it wasn't good for me. It was an old pattern, and I was away from it one weekend. I went to Florida with some family, and I realized I couldn't do what she wanted me to do, which was to continue to rent from her and be in this enmeshed kind of codependent relationship. So I actually said, no, I don't want to rent from you. I need to get my own place. And so she kicked me out. And actually, before I got back, she told me I can't come back. And she put all of my stuff out. And so I had nowhere to live. I had no money again and no car. And I called a friend to ask to crash on her couch, and I crashed on her couch. I reached out to another friend to get an intuitive reading. I did some trading. I kept trading. That was another thing that sustained me for a while, that helped support me at times when I needed support. So I traded a session, and that healing session that I had, she showed me, my guides showed me that I was not seeing, like, that I could have it all right then. And so I realized what I needed to create for myself, that I was ready to have what I wanted, which was like a corner loft, all furnished, where I could do workshops. And so I wrote on Facebook right after the session. 5 minutes later, I wrote on Facebook and said, I am ready for my fully furnished corner loft with all glass windows. And 5 minutes later, after I posted, this guy who I had been Facebook friends with but didn't really know, he had followed my journey and stuff. He said he was wanting to rent his loft. He hadn't put it up for rent yet, but it was a top floor corner loft, fully furnished with all glass windows. So I was like, okay. And then I knew what the amount I needed, and then all of a sudden a client came, and boom, I had it. So I was able to quickly shift from being homeless, because I reached out to the support I needed so I could support myself and believe in myself and know, what I needed in order to support myself, which was going to be a loft. I was thinking before I had that healing session, the intuitive session, that I couldn't have everything, because I had nothing at that moment. So I thought I just needed to rent a room somewhere. But what I was shown was that renting a room wasn't going to take care of my needs, because I needed to teach, and I needed workshop space, and I needed to do that again in a loft, which is where I started my business 11 years ago. I built my business. I was coaching again, and I was doing business workshops for the holistic community again. So I was like kind of doing those two things I would always do. and offering marketing and branding, and I would be coaching clients online and helping them heal with Candida. And then all of a sudden, I did that for about a year, I guess, a year and a half in that place. And then I had to stop doing the marketing stuff. It was like I was doing too much. I wrote my first ebook. I was like doing too much. And so I was like, I need to just focus on one thing. So I started focusing just on my Candida business, and I let the marketing business go because I saw that it was taking away from my energy was drained, but also I needed to focus and stop diluting what I did, because I would be promoting so many other people that people were kind of confused of what I even did. So I focused my business, and then I realized I was a little burnt out, and I had this inspiration someone invited me to be a health coach it was just like a day at a hospital, like a corporate chain in Atlanta. And I was like, health coaching in the corporate setting, that could be interesting. I'm comfortable in the corporate setting. So I tried it out, and I was like, this was cool. This would be great to just like, take a break from building my business and all of the work I was doing, and I was exhausted. And so I realized that I wanted to pursue a job in corporate wellness just to take a break. So tip number 15 is value your breaks. Again, you're not failing or going backwards. You're just taking care of your needs in the moment. My needs in the moment was that I just needed to do something different. I was doing the same stuff for so long, and it was all me. Like, it was all me doing it. I felt like at that moment I needed support. I needed support from a company. I needed the company to take care of all the sales and all the marketing and all the administration and all the accounting and all of it. I just wanted to do what I loved, which was working with people. So I was like, I just need a break from all of that. I was exhausted. So then I had like a new energy, and I actually got a job. I didn't go into coaching. I actually found a job where I was the director of sales for a corporate wellness company. And I was like, this is perfect for me. I can use all of my skills from my past, my corporate career, marketing. I was in charge of all their marketing. They had to redo all their marketing, and I knew health coaching, so I knew kind of the industry. So it was a nice break, and it was nice to be supported financially and not having to do it all. But then I realized that it was still corporate, and I was limited. They were limited. They could only talk about food and exercise, and it wasn't what I do. It's not my truth. I knew what it was really about, why people were struggling. I knew why people weren't buying, and I was like, I worked, for a company that was good, but it was all about the sales, and they were just kind of hustling and doing whatever it took for the sale, and I couldn't do it anymore. So that ended, and around the same time that ended, my website was still up and running, and people were still watching my videos on YouTube that I made throughout the years, from Thailand to San Francisco to Costa Rica. So people were getting to know me still and reaching out to me. So I'd do sessions here and there. And then I did this one session when the corporate job was ending that was all about the emotional connection to Candida. And I was like, I missed this. This is my heart's work. And so I was like, I am going to create my business in a whole new way now. And that's when I created AliciaMiller.com, because I was like, enough with these brands. I had ePowerMe was my first brand. I had Wear Wellness, the online wellness community. I had Samui Healing in Thailand. I had Retreat Yourself, That was the retreat consulting business I had. I had the Detox Advisor. I had other brands in there as well. So I was like, forget it. I am Alicia Miller, and my business will evolve however it evolves. And so then I just started creating, programs around working with clients and group programs. And I created an 8-week Candida home study of all the different lessons of what helped me heal and what helped my clients heal. And then, my business just kept developing. I had my first retreat in Costa Rica with my retreat partner, Janet Raftis, and then working with groups was when I started seeing what was needed to help people move through the healing process and addressing emotional wounds from childhood, addressing emotional causes of symptoms, and really what it takes. And so I started creating, material, like helping people learn about it. It was what was missing from my journey, was really knowing what to do and why things are happening, and how to take care of my emotional needs and set boundaries and all of that. So I started teaching these things in the retreats. I started teaching them in group programs online. And every time I would work with a group, another gift of mine is to tune into the needs and create what each person needs. So that's how I started creating the core emotional healing process and all of the material and the videos and the workbooks. That came from working with people. So in summary, if you have watched this whole thing, or if you haven't yet, please start from the beginning in part 1 and 2, and this is now 3. The journey is something that you really need to just embrace and accept no matter what is happening, because you don't know where it's leading you. And oftentimes we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. So a belief that really can stop you from doing what you're meant to do is that you're supposed to know. And that there's I should know what my purpose is. And because I don't know what my purpose is, I'm not good enough. And I don't know what I'm doing. And, it's all that same old story. So embracing that you probably don't know, and it's okay. You may not know, and you definitely don't know where you're going. No one does. So I hope this video has helped you embrace and accept more about yourself, about your own path, about what you've experienced, and appreciate everything that you've experienced. And even if it's been hard, know that all those hard times that helped you be able to develop a strength to deal with hard stuff as well. Or if you're in that right now, just know that you're in it because you need to deal with it. You need to go through it. You need to develop yourself more, to handle more. In hearing my story, I had been homeless and in deep, dark depression and penniless for so long. Many, many times it just kept coming up and up and up and up. And I had to go through it, and I had to move through it, and I got supported through it, and I healed the root of it each time. And because of that, I can hold space for so much suffering. That's what I do. I hold space for people's suffering. And so when working with people, because I have dealt with my own, I can be with yours, and you will feel safe because my energy can contain it. And that was the purpose of my journey. There was so many things I have received along the way in all the struggles. So really my message is to embrace all of your struggles and know that it doesn't mean anything about you, and do whatever you can in the moment to take care of your needs. and it doesn't have to be the thing that you're going to be doing. So I hope this has helped everyone. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send your questions in a comment. I really wish you all of the, I wish you the love, like that inner love of loving yourself in every moment, enough to keep going, enough to keep reaching out, enough to keep trying hard when it's hard. Okay? Sending you lots of love. Bye.